Chapter 1. The Night Before the Word. A dialogue with silence. The wilderness slept a deep, archetypal sleep, in which millennia of sand and the eternity of God were mingled. The wind skimmed over the sand, like a light, inaudible memory of old times, whispering something to the fated tents, which stood like silent witnesses surrounding the vast camp of Israel. In this boundless, cold darkness, a fire glowed, the last earthly beacon before the sunrise, which was to open a new page in history, when the law, given on stone, was finally to pass into the heart. Moses sat by the flame, his face illuminated from below, creating a play of shadows that emphasized his weary wisdom. His eyes, deep as ancient wells that preserve the water of life, gazed into the night. His gray hair fell to his shoulders, like silver streams of time. His beard, slightly silvered with sand, gently swayed in the wind, which carried the scent of Mount Sinai. His hands, calloused from years and the burden of service and writing, rested on his knees. They were ready for the final blessing, but tired of the constant struggle. It seemed he was listening not to the night, not to the rustle of insects, nor the breathing of thousands of people, but to God himself, who breathed amidst the silence, filling the emptiness with his Shekinah. Lord, he spoke almost in a whisper, and this whisper seemed to reach the throne faster than the loudest shout. You have been near all these years. You endured my anger, their murmuring, our mistakes. You held us in your hands when we ourselves did not know where we were going. But the people still do not understand. They fear you, but they do not know you. They remember your deeds, the parted sea and the manna, but not the heart that performed them. They see your might, but forget your love. Silence answered from the darkness. It was not the absence of sound, but a presence that transcended all sound. Yet it was not empty. The covenant pulsed within it. The voice lived in it, which Moses had learned to hear, not with his ears, but with his soul. A voice quieter than the wind, yet mightier than thunder. Tell them, Moses, tell them all that you have seen and heard. Give them not the law, though it is the foundation of their life, but the love that stands behind it. For the law without love is merely a set of rules leading to death. But love is the spirit that gives life and the strength to fulfill the law. Write this word on their heart, not on stone. Moses lifted his head. His eyes flared with the reflection of the flame, as if the fire of the burning bush was reflected in them. He knew this would be his last great word to the people, a word that would decide their fate more than all battles. A word that must pass through generations, like fire through gold, cleansing everything from fear and indifference, from formalism and hypocrisy. He felt his life was only a prelude to this single, most important sermon, the sermon that the meaning of the law is love. He carried the final gift of God, the message that God is not only the terrible judge, but the eternal lover of his people. Chapter 2. The Morning of the Covenant. Truth written in the heart at dawn, Moses emerged onto the hill, enveloped in the morning mist that dispersed, revealing the entire camp. Thousands of tents, like sand waves frozen in anticipation, stretched to the horizon. The sun rose, promising not just a new day, but a new era. People woke up, coming out to meet the sun. Children laughed, their laughter sounding like the first notes of a new hymn. The elders gazed at the east silently, realizing they were looking at their last dawn in the wilderness, and the youth lined up around the tabernacle, the golden and white house, where the invisible God resided, their living heart, Moses raised his hand, and in this hand was all the power of the wilderness, all the wisdom of Sinai, and the noise subsided. A silence hung over the wilderness, heavy as gold, filled with anticipation, which was physically felt. He began to speak, with a voice that was not his own, but borrowed by eternity, in which resonated the years of the journey, the pain and the glory, the losses and the faith. His gaze penetrated the crowd, seeing not just faces, but the souls he sought to save. "Hear, O Israel." His voice rang out, strong and clear, like a hammer blow on resonant bronze. "Shema Yisrael, the Lord our God is one Lord. He is not one of the gods of Egypt or Canaan. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the only one who is and will be." The people raised their heads, feeling how these words shook the foundations of their world. Some whispered the words, like an incantation protecting from evil. Others simply listened as their hearts began to beat faster, adjusting to the rhythm of this primary truth. "You shall love the Lord your God," Moses continued, moving from law to pure emotion. "With all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might." He paused, giving these words time to penetrate deep into their consciousness, inhaling the air of the wilderness, which smelled of dust and freedom. "Not because he demands it," the elder added quietly, and in this "not because" was the entire philosophy of his service, but because without this love, you will not live. Without it, your strength will become anger, your wisdom, pride, your deeds, ashes. It is the only engine, the only meaning, the only axis around which your entire destiny revolves. The law is only the form, but love is the spirit that fills it. If you do not love, then even the greatest sacrifice is an empty sound. The elders bowed their heads, deeply impressed that the prophet had expressed their greatest problem so simply and directly. The young men stood, as if rooted to the ground, their faces filled with realization. Something stirred in the hearts of many of them, something that does not submit to fear or law, only to a truth that goes beyond words. It was a moment of psychological and spiritual breakthrough, when an external rule became an internal desire. Chapter 3, The Path of the Heart, a whisper in the tent. That same evening, Moses walked among the tents, inhaling the scent of 1,000 fires mixed with the smell of freedom. People came out to meet him as they meet a saint, blessing him, thanking him, asking questions. They wanted to touch the man who had seen God face to face, but he looked not at them. He looked into the depth of every gaze, as if trying to see if the love he spoke of already lived there, whether the word Shema had settled in their souls. He was looking not for confirmation of his correctness, but for the seed of faith sown in good ground. He stopped near one tent. The light from inside cast flickering, warm shadows on the sand. A little boy, about 10 years old, was writing something on the sand with a stick. He was of the generation born in freedom, carrying a pure, untainted memory. Moses bent down, his majesty bowed to childhood innocence. "What are you drawing, son?" "Letters," the boy replied, his voice clear and pure as a mountain stream. "The ones you spoke today. I heard them speak to me." "Shema." Moses smiled, and this smile was his most sincere reward for 40 years. "And what do they mean to you? What is their true, inner meaning?" That you must listen with your heart, the boy said quietly, as if revealing a great, hidden truth. Because the ears listen to thunder, but the heart listens to a whisper. The old man's lips trembled. Emotion overwhelmed him. He felt he had not struggled in vain. He reached out and touched the child's head. This was a blessing that transmitted the spirit of the law. Yes, that is right. You have understood everything. Listen with your heart, not with your ears. For the voice of God is not in the thunder and storm that frighten you, but in the silence that lives within you, in quiet inner love. It is there, in the silence, that the covenant begins. This meeting was the epic culmination of his work. The least of the people understood the deepest truth. Moses walked on, but his heart sang. Shema will not disappear. It has found its soil in the heart of a child. Chapter 4. The Trial of Love. Thirst of the soul. A few days passed after Moses spoke the Shema, and the world returned to its accustomed heavy reality. And although the elders' words still lingered in the air, like the aroma of sacred incense, the people began to grumble again. So quickly does human weakness overcome the highest truth. Some said that to love God, those were just beautiful words, a luxury, when you have water and bread, when you're comfortable. But when the sand burns your feet, when fatigue bends your back, when thirst parches your throat, then love is tested. Then it either becomes truth or it crumbles. That night, several elders from the tribes came to Moses. These were weary men, burdened with responsibility. Their appearance was a reflection of internal turmoil. They spoke slowly, cautiously, for they feared offending the prophet. But in every word, dissatisfaction was felt, a grumbling as old as the wilderness. "We listen to you, Moses," one of them said. "Your words are beautiful, like poetry. But does it not seem to you that love for God is not for us, sinful, weak people, but for angels? We are human. We are tired of the journey, of the burden of the law. We need not feelings, but answers. When is the end? Where is the water?" Moses was silent for a long time, collecting within himself the silence of Mount Sinai. Then he looked up. His eyes shone as if a candle had ignited within them, lit from an invisible source, from pure faith. "You did not understand," he said, his voice soft, yet filled with the weight of millennia. "Love for God is not an escape from life. It is a path through it. It is not a sweet word. It is a fire that purifies. When you walk through the heat of the wilderness and still believe that God is near, that is when you love. When you do not see the answer, but continue to trust, that is when love is real, stronger than death." "But why does he not give us rest?" another asked, his voice filled with despair. "Haven't we suffered enough already?" Moses inhaled deeply. The answer was difficult, but necessary. Because without the wilderness, we would forget the heart. Comfort makes us indifferent. It lulls the soul, and love only grows where there is thirst, a thirst for God. He cultivates you not in a greenhouse, but in a storm, so that you may become strong like cedars. The elders were silent. Their grumbling subsided, turning into a sad realization. That night, the wind swept over the camp again, and it seemed to whisper, "Shema, listen, love." It was no longer the word of the prophet, but the pulse of the wilderness itself. Chapter 5. The Last Blessing. The Testament of Fidelity. The sun slowly descended behind the horizon, painting the sky in the majestic farewell colors of gold and indigo. Moses stood on the summit of Mount Nebo, where heaven touches earth, at the highest point of his destiny. Before him lay the land promised by God, which he saw, like an artist who had completed his painting. He saw it, every hill, every river, every vineyard, but knew his foot would not step upon it. This was his final great solitude. Yet there was no bitterness in his eyes, not a shadow of discontent, only deep peace, like a man who has accomplished everything he was meant to do and accepts his end as the logical conclusion of the journey. Beside him stood Joshua, his disciple and successor, young, but already burdened with the premonition of authority. "Teacher," he said softly, his voice trembling, "you gave us the law, you showed the way, but how are we not to lose the love when you are no longer with us? How are we to hear God without your voice?" Moses placed his hand on his shoulder. This touch conveyed to Joshua not only authority, but also the Spirit. "Remember, Joshua, the law is the hands that hold, they give structure and order, and love is the heart that nourishes them. It gives life and warmth. When law is without love, it is dead, it becomes a yoke. When love is without truth, it is blind, it becomes chaos. But together, they are the breath of God Himself. Hold on to them both, like the two pillars of the tabernacle." Joshua bowed his head, accepting this invisible burden. Tears fell to the ground, tears of farewell and promise. Moses raised his eyes to the sky, to the source of his faith. "Lord, may they never forget your voice, not the one that thunders in the storms, but the one that speaks in the heart. For Shema is not just words, it is the pulse of life. It is the eternal covenant." And it seemed that the winds ceased, all of nature waited, and even the sun stopped for a moment, listening to this prayer. This was the last, highest blessing, echoing over the promised land. Chapter 6, The Heart That Did Not Forget. Epilogue of the Eternal Covenant. When Moses departed to the Lord, his body vanished without a trace, but his spirit remained in every tent. The people stood by the mountain for a long time, immersed in deep collective mourning. Some wept, releasing the pain of 40 years. Others were silent, accepting the silence of the new leadership. But among them stood the same boy who had once written letters in the sand. He took a stone and carved on it the short word, Shema. This was his personal, eternal covenant. Many years passed. Israel entered the land, conquered, built, sinned, and repented. Cities were built, life flowed. The times of kings, prophets, and judges arrived. But whenever darkness gathered over the people, when their hearts grew cold and their faith faded, someone whispered, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." And light returned, as if the fire from the burning bush was ignited anew in their souls. For the love that the old prophet had sown in the hearts of the people did not vanish, did not dissolve into dust. It was passed down from generation to generation as the most valuable inheritance, as an unquenchable fire that does not go out even in the darkest night. And as long as someone in the world utters these words not only with their lips, but with their heart, the memory of Moses' lives, his final lesson, and the God whom he taught them to love lives. For this covenant is the pulse that beats in the heart of Israel and in the heart of everyone who seeks the truth. This was not the end of the journey, but its realization.